Irish, as ever was, Father. A long way from home. New England American, or somewhere near, unless I missed my guess. I thought the revolution was supposed to be over, he said, and looked back towards the scene in the courtyard. What a bloody country. Which was a reasonably unpriest-like remark, although understandable in the circumstances. I said, "The discontented are always with us, Father, even after revolutions. Why, there are some in these parts who think it's still open season on priests." "We're in God's hands," he said harshly. "All of us." Which was arguable, but I was prevented from taking the question up with him, for one of the condemned against the wall inside the courtyard cried out sharply and pointed towards us as the sergeant was about to tie his hands. There was some kind of disturbance, and then a young officer strolled towards the gate and beckoned to the priest, who left me without a word and went towards him. "Believe it or not, Father, but one of these pigs wants to confess," I heard the officer say. The priest said nothing, simply took a breviary from his pocket, spat out his cigarillo, and started through the gate. By the time he reached the wall, all three were on their knees waiting for him. I didn't stop to watch, for I had seen men die before, or at least that's what I told myself as I turned and went across the square to the Hotel Blanco on the far side. It was a tall, slender building which had been used as a strong point by the government forces during the war, and the crumbling facade was pitted with bullet holes. In the patio, a fountain splashed water across scarlet tiles, and the cool darkness of the terrace looked very inviting. The owner of the place lounged in a wicker chair by the screen door, fanning himself with a palm fan. His name was Janos, and he was Hungarian as far as I could make out, although his English was excellent. The most noticeable thing about him was his great size. He must have been 17 or 18 stone at least, with a great pendulous belly, and sweated constantly. "Ah, Mr. Keogh, a hot day. You will join me in a beer?" There were several stone bottles of lager in a bucket of water at his side. I helped myself to one and pulled the cork. As I did so, another volley sounded in the courtyard opposite. I sat on the rail beside him as the crowd began to disperse. "A nasty business," Janos said, managing to sound as if he didn't give a damn. "Yes, too bad," I answered automatically, for I was watching for the priest. He emerged from the gateway with the officer who walked to the Mercedes with him. They stood talking for a while. Then the officer saluted and the priest got into the car and drove away. "A strange sight, that," Janos commented. "Not only a priest, but a priest in an automobile." "I suppose so." I emptied the beer bottle and stood up. "But not to you, Mr. Keogh. Here, have another beer." He lifted one, dripping wet from the bucket, and held it out to me. "In your Ireland, you will have been familiar with many such vehicles. Here, they are still a rarity. You can drive yourself, I understand?" Which was leading to something. I said, "It's not very difficult." "For an intelligent man, perhaps not. But these peasants," he shrugged. "They are incapable of learning anything beyond the simplest tasks. I myself have a truck, the only one in Bonito, most important to my business. I imported a driver-mechanic specially from Tampico, but the wretched man had to go and involve himself in politics. A dangerous thing to do in this country." He wiped a fresh layer of sweat from his fat face. "He was in the first batch they shot this morning. Most unfortunate." He obviously meant for himself personally. I said, "That's life, Mr. Janos. He shouldn't have joined." A pretty hard way of looking at it, but then most of the more human feeling had been burned out of me a long time ago, particularly where that kind of situation was concerned. It was none of my affair, and I was tired of the conversation, which for some reason had a strange air of unreality to it. I was hot, and I was tired, and wanted nothing so much as a bath and perhaps a couple of hours on my bed before the train left. I stood up, and Janos said, "I have a rather important consignment to go to Huila. You know the place, perhaps?" I saw then what he wanted, but there was no reason.